How's everyone's morning so far?
Getting there, getting the coffee in it.
My morning
Perfect.
started at 6 a.m. So
6 a.m. It's okay. So we had a topic that we just kind of wanted to talk about this week. Just how we're spending our time on the app in other rooms, live with each other, balancing life. So that's kind of the topic of today. So we're going to kind of touch base on our own experiences and how we manage those things.
well, for me, I started off with the taking something you had said previously to like where no, not doom scrolling all the time and like melting my brain into submission and actually taking the content that I am trying to find and actually like seeking it out instead of having the AI try and tell me what I want to see. So I started with that for my own self, and then that also then spun into the lives that I scroll through. You know, what do I want to get out of a live that I'm looking at? And then putting that into practice of being like, well, if this creator doesn't fit the need that I'm looking for, then perhaps I shouldn't be following that creator anymore.
It's awesome. I think that's important. We all know, right? That's what the app, as much as it's designed to give us what we want, it's always going to give you those swings, right? And those swings attack our mental health more than we know. It's been proven, right? So have to mind that time that we spend just because of those. I think our mind can only take so many swings in a week, I think. And it's that app will, any app, right? That's meant to entertain you, right? It's meant to keep you there. That's pretty important. I find it difficult because I have so much live time. You know, no one owes anyone any of their time to anybody, right? You know, you gotta you gotta keep yourself happy first. But definitely becomes like a hard balance between trying to just show up for other creators to be like, hey, like pass by to say I support what you're doing, I think is important and often gets misinterpreted to you have to spend a ton of time. And that's where I want to spend 5 minutes with everyone at least when I'm there. I don't just kind of want to fly by. So I definitely I think that'll always be a challenge, especially after so many creators that some have started watching, became streamers, maybe drifted away. And then the expectation to be there for everybody, I feel like is there, whether it's there or not. I feel like that expectation for me to be there all the time. And then as soon as the other people aren't around, I feel like maybe I'm not vocal enough about my own expectations, but I try to put it back on me anyways, because that's definitely a big, deep well of managing time between creating and absorbing.
Yeah, there's definitely a line there, and it gets blurred a lot. Where do you draw it? How much time do you dedicate? Like a lot of the people that I'm sure I followed when I started, they now come into my room, and other people have gone on in my room to start their own, and I try and pop by theirs, but at the same time you watch them grow without you, and that's fantastic, but you still want to go and support because that's how you started. It's hard to figure out how much time you spend there, especially when the room's not moving. When you come in, there's like nobody or maybe two people there, and chat's not moving, you're like, do I stay here? Like, is this my responsibility? It's hard to justify sometimes. Like, oh, I got stuff to do, but this person's chat's not moving, and I feel like, I'm the reason they started, type thing.
So would you spend less time in that room if they were really busy?
I think that's situation based too, right? Like, do they have time to dedicate to you? Is it worth your time to you and them having a conversation, or are they doing fine? Is there something you can do? Like, because I know when I go into places, people follow me. Just like both you guys go into places, people see that you're live, so they click, hey, they're live. Doesn't matter if you're live on your own or in somebody else's. It pulls you in there. So does that benefit sticking around? Can you benefit them in some way, even if you're not going to stay, or do you choose to stay? Like, it's a constant, just like what content do you look at? It's a constant thing.
Yeah, right. The time management. So I think the way I look at, how do I put it? Like I don't really find a lot. I try not to scroll. So I often don't even really know what people are doing in their room before I go in there. So I already kind of like gauge how much time do I have right now that am I still going to allow myself to have the proper break? Because that's usually like what I'm balancing, right? I'm balancing away time from the app. I'm trying to, be there for as many people a day as you can, right? And then how do you keep track of, that's the other thing, like that list grows to the point where how do you prioritize too? I think that's another thing I struggle with is how do you prioritize, right? Because everyone has different sizes of circles.
Yeah.
For me, I try to keep the circle small, because then I can support them properly.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think we all struggle, like a viewer or someone that goes live, right? You only have so many hours in a day, and you have to be somewhat productive for some of them, and you have to sleep.
I also have a hard time limit for me on the app.
Oh, that's healthy.
So I have like a 2-hour window of the day, for example, and then that's it. Once I hit that 2 hours, it's like, okay, time to put the phone down and move on with my day. I usually break it up into periods. So like I'll be on for like a half hour or an hour, and then take a break, and then come back a couple hours later, for another half hour, an hour, so on and so forth. Just because also I don't want to be in somebody's block like this, for example, and then have no valuable information to submit to somebody, because like my brain is so far spent that I can't give anything. You know what I mean? So I try to break it up that way so that I come back with actual useful energy instead of sitting here and being just a box up on mute or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's important, right? Having something to give always. I think also it varies between just support and time spent on the app when that's something that you're going after and trying to build. You have to be even more delicate because it's not just a financial incentive. There's a community incentive. And so that takes even more kind of a relaxed approach. And so I find that can change the amount of time you're available, and then that you feel like you're indebted really when you shouldn't be. I think that comes from both sides. You feel like you're indebted to your viewers as a live host, or as a viewer, if you're loyal to a few people that are constantly hosting.
Okay.
I try and multitask as much as possible. Like, what am I doing now that I could share with my community? and that seems to help. But the scrolling, scheduling the scrolling, and then finding, the more and more people that you go into, the I really should stop in and say hi thing pops into your head. I haven't seen this person in a while,
Yeah.
regardless of whether they've been in your room or not. And you're like, you just got finished alive, or whatever it is. You got 2 seconds and you pick it up and you look and you're like, oh, that person's on, this person's on. Who do I go in first? It's always like, if you're busy doing something, it's always, do you say hi to that person? How much time is it going to take? How do we set the boundaries and how do we draw the line? Like, having hard set times is a really good way of doing that, but it's also like, we ran into this. I think the first time we did the live, we were talking about doing an hour and a half, and we ran over. We were over 2 hours by the time we were done. And
Yeah.
what do we do? Do we set an alarm so it just ends at 2 hours? And even if we're mid sentence, it's just done. Like, it's that type of mentality that we battle with when we're on here.
Yeah, and that's why I think this is from something from so long, and it's not to stress anybody, but when I would try to evaluate my time spent in that room as if they've got one. Like, I mean, one, if they're really struggling for views, and that's something that, I feel like I'm gonna take responsibility for. But ideally it's an entertainment app, right? So I try to go in and say, is there anything I can kind of do to help? And I try to always offer content ideas and things to help with people. But as time goes, when there's not the traffic, even if people are doing stuff right, you just have to kind of realize your limitations, I guess. And then that's where I try to search for someone and just click in, because I don't really care what they're doing, right? I think I would spend the same amount of time if they're relatively busy to crazy busy, because I don't know, I don't go in to be seen anymore. I kind of just go in to comment on their comment as if they were. And I think that's something that kind of got lost with social media. So many people are live just kind of hanging out, and then it just draws this really, it's like more houses to visit instead of more reasons to visit the houses. It's maybe where my point goes.
Yeah, I've definitely tried to focus on going in the constructive rooms. Like, we touched on it, with the restructure, the way the scaled rewards works with people just sleeping in the boxes and stuff. It's I try and stay away from those rooms. If there's not a conversation going, or something constructive, I stay away. If it's just stuff like that, even if I know the people, I'm not going in there. And I made that choice a little while ago because I found myself just going in and having a chat for the sake of having a chat because that person was on, and it's not like I was spending so much time doing that just because you felt responsible to go in there. Now it's, what's the reason? Are you driving for, your personal business, or are you having like games, or, did you need somebody in there for a moderator's another thing. Like, how much time do you dedicate to that as well? Because if you're mods in other people's lives, that's a huge thing.
That's a problem for me.
Well, and then you got to think about how much time how much time you need to be live every day yourself on a schedule.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing, because that's one thing I struggle with, right? Is a schedule for myself, and then everyone else has a rotating schedule around my rotating schedule. So it creates like extra, I wouldn't say stress, but extra calculations to make sure that you do find the people that you want to find as well. So I find that to be like almost not double, but there's an extra weight when you're live yourself. And that's why I would say my advice, creator to creator, there should be extremely relaxed with that. Because you want your fellow creator to bring in as many people onto the app on their own, really. Even myself, you want to bring as many people to your room as you can, and as many people in your extended community bring more people around, that creates a healthier space naturally, right? And I think that's hard in itself.
Mm.
How do you feel, Mr. Bypass?
Digesting information.
That I can see.
Yeah, just for me, I never really thought about it like dividing up my time like a pie. You know, it's more like I open the app and then I'm like, okay, well, out of everyone who's live, you know, who do I want to go see? And then like, do I want to mod for them or not at that time? That kind of is what goes through my mind. And then kind of go from there. And then when I go into the room, let's say like here, like I'm going, okay, on the list, is there any other mods? And are they modded? And then make my.
How's the feeling of now? So does that feel like that puts like pressure on you?
Oh, always. The pressure is always like, if they're not modding, then like, okay, now I have to step into the role and make sure that things are smooth and rolling, right? Because that's the whole point of being a mod is like understanding the room's vibe, and making sure that every of those rules are followed in a at least a casual, right? So for me, for example, like if I saw no one modding, then I'm like, now I got to focus on the chat more than like, let's say I was planning on coming in here, listening to you and doing laundry, for example. I would probably pull the laundry to the side and then start modding, for example.
Yeah, there's definitely different levels of attention, like in every room, based on who's hosting and who's in the chat, how busy it is, and it's especially that changes when you're a mod. It's different levels of, can you just hang out in the chat and say, I'm here, and then go about your business, or do you actually have to watch the chat and contribute, or not even just contribute, but pay attention and, you know, keep filling the room. And that is a different level of mental focus and physical. Like it's draining regardless. It's I think the key metric is how much we have in our cup. So how much do, like, along with the scheduling, like how much do we pour into? Because some days, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have it in me to sit and watch a chat and then go, yeah, cool, ha ha ha. Like, I just don't have it in me at the end of the day, or sometimes at the beginning of the day, you have to be in that mood. Like it's the same thing as creating content. Sometimes you don't have it in you.
For me too, there's also a cue of like who's in the room. Because like when you're in a room regularly, you get the vibe of what people are like. And I look at the list that's like at the top, and I'll be like, all right, who's a troublemaker out of this list? Who do I have to keep my eye on? Because there's some people that can get really risky really quickly, and then there's other people that are just pretty casual, and you're just like, all right, you know, I don't really have to worry about this person because generally they're okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm usually the risky one.
Oh, in that case, hang on. Let me just go click here, mute. Oh, just kidding. No, but then
It's interesting the way I just say, yeah, part of like, I don't know, I don't really actively like moderate, but I just picture if it was like a busy room, like what would you be able to continuously keep up with so that you don't have to mold your strategy with the room, I guess, is like my big thing, right? Like almost have levels of get the room engaged, follow what's going on, and then, I mean, the goal is to get to the room to the point where you're just basically sitting, like you're watching and involving yourself with the chat. I just think it'll all depend on how busy the room is and, you know, what you want to look at. But I found it generally in a room that constantly evolves, unless you're there like absolutely every day. I think like, you know, in a situation where, you know, I mod for X number of rooms, like I've heard that over the years many times, like, and it's like 30 rooms, and I'm like, well, how do you look after 30 people?
Yeah.
There's no possible way that's, you know, like you can't be, you don't, there's not enough time in the day to look after 30 people all week, right? And so situations like that, I guess, I mean, as long as it's not more of a status and it's more of like a volunteer of time, because I take that as like a high like respect, like that way, right? Yeah, I'm always curious like how people establish strategies, right, about going into a room, expectations, or like how they're gonna feel, or whether they're just falling into a room, right?
Yeah, being somebody's mod is not like if somebody's made you a mod and you spend no time in the room and you don't contribute at all, and you just pop in and say hi, or not even, but they've made you a mod and you haven't been there. That doesn't mean you're a mod and you're not a mod. You've just
It's been a
once or twice, right?
Sorry, I've just seen it become a for some it's just more of like a status thing. Like I've been friends with you for X long, like I should have powers in your room. Like, but
Yeah, that's come up too. Yeah.
Right.
I don't ask like that. Like it's never a status thing for me. It's a job.
Yeah.
You've given me mod status. I am a job now. That's how I consider all of my mod statuses. I'm in the room and I'm there to do a job. Maybe have fun too, but like, you know, like you're a bouncer at the door.
Well, that's it.
It's a trust thing. It's definitely an honor when somebody asks, but if they're asking for the wrong reasons just because they want to have a mod, like because it sounds cool and they say, well, here's my mod, and it goes both ways. You get to say, oh, I'm their mod, like if they blow up or whatever, or you just talking to somebody. But I've said no to I don't know how many people about being mods in their rooms for that reason. I don't have the time to dedicate to it. I think I'm mods in like 3 rooms, and even then, I'm hardly in there. But when I do, I make sure I do have the job, and if I'm not doing the job, I say I don't think I should be a mod anymore. You should give it to somebody that's here, that's being responsible and taking it seriously. Like I appreciate it, but there's that.
The other thing I think about is not just about the duties in the room you're modding. Like, for example, I think about my action in other rooms. So, like, let's say we're battling somebody that we battle on a regular basis, like in Zen's team, and I'm popping around the room and I see one of the people we regularly visit. Like, there are often times where I'll go into that room and I'll, you know, gift like a celebration or whatever and just say from Team Zen, you know, just because it's respect, right? And I'm usually generally respectful for those people too. Like I'm never going to be like a troll or an a-hole to them, because like that then circles around and affects the room as well. So I take those things into account being a mod as well.
Yeah, I think my biggest focus is for that experience is, yeah, just like it's a time management thing for everybody, right? Want to make sure that because that can also overextend your feelings of being on live, right? Like I'm live more than most people work a job, like on average a week. Like I'm usually 55 to 80. So how does someone who, that's the other thing, is how do you not stress a team of moderators, right? And that's where it also becomes important to have a schedule around that, is so people can find those times that they can slot themselves in. But just the same, regardless of a schedule, the amount of time that I'm present, how many people really have more than 2 hours in their entire day that they really should be giving up, right? Because that's respect to yourself as a live host. That's respect to yourself as a viewer. You have to be able to look after yourself, or else you don't have anything in your cup to pour out. And I think that becomes a lost thing very quickly, right? especially for the people that will just endlessly give.
The other thing I think about too is how do I give to them? Like to the ones that like I know their cup is empty. You know? How do I like besides giving them like an emotional thumbs up text, you know, or an inspirational video, how do I help refill some of their cups that are drained out? You know, these are things I think about regularly. You know, whether we use the Discord or whatever, but you know, come up with clever ways to try to fill that glass up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And as a host, you have that same problem too. It's like you're looking at your team going, okay, well, how do I motivate them and give them their energy back, you know, that they gave to you or to the room? Same kind of concept.
Yeah, like they're here to see me, but
Exactly.
it's a very difficult thing to respect. Yeah. Back to always, right? Like respecting, even like respecting my time live. It's very easy to sit on live at that very end. You've kind of decided that end point, and then everyone kind of just starts trickling in one at a time, and it makes it very difficult to end. But that's part of the game that you play with. You know, you just have to say, I got to respect myself and cut it. But you feel like you need to keep staying, but that can be a forever process of one person comes in every 5 minutes for the next hour, right?
I've seen you stuck in that a few times where you're just like, I was about to get off, and then 12 of you just showed up.
Yeah. And you want to talk to everyone, but at the same point, you know, you got to remind yourself whatever the audience was doing, you know, where were those people for the last, you know, and then you look at your live time, you've been on over 2 hours, right? And then schedule comes back in at that very end, that tie point back together again.
Yeah, mine was quite the pattern, and it was happenstance the way it was happening. My first big growth spurt that I had, every time I would make a comment, okay, I'm going to end the live in like 15 minutes, the room would jump from like 20 people to 50 people to 70 to 100. And I'm just like, okay, I'll stay. And then it calms down a bit. Okay, I'm going to end the live in 5 minutes, and then it jump again. And it was a constant battle with how long do you stay on to support that, where I got to the point where I did the hard, okay, I'm going now, and it'd be like 150 people in the room, and you get that notification when you click end. It says, are you sure you want to leave these people hanging? Yep. Yeah, because I'm done. And it's not the greatest feeling, but it's something that you have to decide to do, whether it's 150 people or it's 3. And those 3 people just showed up. And I've done it a lot lately because I've been more consistent. But it's still that, hey, how are you? Good to see you, but I'm just ending the live. I'll catch you next time. You know, maybe I'll give you an idea because I never schedule mine, but I'll be on close to this time. Pop in and I'll say hi and we'll chat. It's definitely tough to, you know, leave a room when people come in. It's like, oh, hey, I want to stay and talk to you, but like I'm done. Like I got other stuff to do. So it's my core group understands that for the most part, and I will sometimes change when I go on. I'll go on later, or I'll start earlier, whatever, or I'll go on for like my lunch lives that I do from wherever I end up for work, and then I get to see a different group of people, and they're like, hey, we didn't see your last night live, good to see you today, that type of thing. So sometimes that's a forethought to when I go live, but I never schedule it so people don't know when I'm on. But ending it is tough when, especially if you want to talk to those people. How do you justify staying on longer when you've already stayed on longer?
Well, it's a never ending, it can be a never ending cycle. I think something that, like a tool on this app that maybe we all should try to take more advantage of is at the end of the live to slow the chat down even. and to limit the number of people coming through once you're kind of on shutdown mode, is to use that sub only feature. I think that's a great thing that we all kind of forget. That would actually slow down, you'd have just your subscribers coming through, just the people that are more dedicated support. And then that gives you an opportunity to build your community. That's actually that's actually a practice that they try to promote creators to use. Although it's something that the very end, you're usually not thinking of an exit strategy for your live, where usually you're just kind of, you're at the end of that broadcast. And
yeah, I never even thought of that.
The other thing is winding down by physically doing an action every time. Like if you look at like any childhood TV show from like the early 90s to today, they all like wrap up all of the loose ends of that particular live or of that particular action that they're doing. Whether that's like a huddle at the end of like, oh, this is what we learned today, blah, 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 blah. Or like, like the big comfy couch, for example, that's in my brain right now with that big clock and the lady with her feet, and she just kind of goes and like, that's the cleanup time. You know what I mean? It's just a way to signal to everyone being like, you know what, like I'm going to do this hard cut because like my time is respected too, and, people forget about that as well when they're on live. So they usually just keep by. You're like leaving people reeling because like you didn't stop or wind it down.
so my question to that is, how do you deal with, you just finish your wind down, it goes quiet, a second later, 2 new people scroll in. Hey Zen, how you doing, buddy? What's going on? And you just finished your close down with the way TikTok is. And I think that's where that finally like, okay, bye, like I'm done. Because when do you, and I've found that where I've tried to, okay, we're going to wind it down. We're leaving in 15 minutes. And at 15 minutes, dead on, 30 seconds before I'm about to hit the button, 2 people pop in when it's like dead quiet. And then you have to like restart just because of the TikTok experience. It's not like a TV show. And I find that a struggle, if I could say, because I've tried multiple like wind down, and I find it's hard to, other than having a schedule, right? And that's back to schedule. I have a hard time signaling. It's like, okay, we're done. Like a physical way of someone scrolling in and knowing the live is at the last 5 minutes or something.
So when I was doing my lives and I wanted to do the wind down, I used I have a projector. So I would project like the 24 o'clock, from that TV series, and it would be behind me. And then as it ticked down, it was like a notifier to being like, that's how much time's left before I'm gone. So like if you're coming in and there's only like 5 seconds left, they kind of knew, like, I know it's going to go in 5 seconds. So like I came in late, I'll see you next time. Kind of situation. And usually at the very end, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to go live, Wednesday at like 6 p.m. Eastern, and then I give that teaser out at the very end. So then they know, like, they can come back at that time if they want to see me.
Yeah.
Like, I get where you're coming from, where the app is always constantly pushing new people to you and like pushing you out on the FYP and stuff like that. But like, it's the same thing about a live broadcast. Like, for example, like a news station, right? They have to find a pattern, stick with the pattern every time, and then the people get used to it too, right? So then your community that's around you that's regular knows like, oh, well, he just kind of made this funny joke, and we know we're at like the 15-minute mark, ha ha ha, and that's why they do it. And it's like a brain psyche, like it's a psychological, sociological thing that like gets inbred into you after seeing it. And I think that might help in those situations because after a while, people just get used to it.
I usually start having a chat I'll mention, I think I got 3 or 4 more songs because after I cook and eat, I usually come sit down here and play music for people. And I will stop taking requests if I'm taking a request for music. And then I'll just say I got maybe 3 or 4 more songs left in me, which has caught me out a couple times where I've been like, okay, that's the last one because it's a really good song. Like, of course, you love music, so you want to play that song. But the other night it was 5 songs into it, and then more people would come in and say, "Oh, this is a really good song," and then suggest another one. But it's, for the most part, it's worked pretty good. Where I've just said something similar. I didn't realize it was a wind down that I was setting, but it's like, I've got 3 or 4 more songs, and then I'll play my final song because I usually start with a certain song and end with a certain song. And for the most part, everybody's really respectful, and like you'll see people say bye and leave, and the room starts to dwindle down. It's pretty good, with some exceptions.
Always, it's entertainment at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a super difficult thing, and I think that, I don't know, depends on how your community is, depends on how you set stuff up, but right, I think it's always a big thing is, I think also you find the more you're like, if you're to say you're going to stay on, and then, like that, like I say, I've been focused pretty well on, schedule as being my root fault, right? And so I think also staying in a rhythm as well as being consistent helps. So everyone knows there's around a certain time you're already winding your live down, rather than I don't really know when he came on and when he's getting off kind of thing. So I think that can also change how you build your viewership, and then how they'll read you back, right?
I have a creator that I quite like to follow, and they use like little bells to signify like where we are in the live time that they're in, because they do set hard schedules and things like that, and different tones of bells meant different things. So like, here's the halfway mark, here's the last 15 minutes, here's the last 5 minutes, kind of thing. And I always thought that was kind of cool and interesting, because then like I came into the room and then I hear a bell a few minutes later, I'm like, oh, I know I'm halfway through the live.
That's something we're going to have to learn how to do when we add segments. Like, if it gets to the point where we're doing certain segments, like we can't just keep going regardless. We're going to have to set some sort of a structure and schedule. Like, we have a loose structure right now. There's no, other than a topic and a time limit, we don't have we need to spend 15 minutes on this, half an hour on this. But if we do add segments moving forward, we have to figure out time management internally. Like, when do we set the notifications for, hey, we need to segue into this next one, or we're bringing a guest up, and how do we have that hard line? Okay, we're going to bring a guest up for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is, because conversations run over, things come up in the chat, ideas, outside forces, everything affects it. So how do we build that structure and maintain it so that, if we decide to jam a whole bunch into one episode, how do we not run 4 hours instead of 2? Because stuff like that does happen. So it's very important to keep that base, and because of what we're doing here, especially, like, we need to know that the 3 of us as a group, there's at least one person saying, okay, we're moving on to this. Because I know that if one of us says that, the other 2 will agree, whoever says it, because it makes sense in our head because of
course,
the conversations we previously had. But if none of us say it, because we're all empaths at the end of the day, and we're all like, okay, we're waiting. So it's got to be, it doesn't have to be agreed upon, but if somebody does say it, then it has to be, somebody has to say it, type thing.
No, 100%. I think, structure as we continue to do this every Sunday is having some structure is important because, like I've had many talks, but whenever you deal with mental health, it's really hard to put have a set time. Of course, to put hard limits on anything mental health related can be very, I don't know, the last thing you want to do is add a stress to something that you're trying to peel back a layer about something, right?
Yeah,
It's like, well, you have to peel back the layer in 3, 2.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're peeling back the next layer, right? And I know we're all supportive of something like that. I think to have an open flow to how we would like, our hour and a half is really that's where we're shooting for, right? It takes a little bit longer to get through some areas. Great, 2 hours done. But I totally agree that as we continue to have an idea of pieces of how the session will go.
You guys are fans of Top Gear, I assume?
Yeah, I've watched some Top Gear.
That dynamic with the 3 guys, and I don't know if you ever noticed, but when they go to the news section, it was always one of them that would say adamantly and even talk over the other 2 if they were mid-sentence, and now it's time for the news. And it didn't matter what they were saying. Normally it was a nice smooth segue, but I've watched the series, and even going into the Grand Tour, it was the same thing. They had Conversation Street, I believe it was called.
Okay.
And they would one of them would make sure that they segued to it, even talking over the other people. It was a hard time. And I'm sure on the show it looked like a hard time, but for them it was a scheduled thing, right? At a certain time in the production, they had to start on Conversation Street or whatever. So I think it was a loose structure that translated into a hard line when production was done.
Okay.
Like even with our pre-chat that we didn't have, which turned into we definitely need to have a chat. We did kind of have a chat. It was just a message, but it wasn't the chat that we intended. But the point got across, and I'm pretty sure all of us were happy with it.
got the information we needed out of that text. It's just a different format.
It's awesome. I like that. I like that we're, trying to really look at this positively for ourselves, right? As well as for others. I think it's important to talk about the important things while sharing our own experiences that tie into those topics and ideas.
I think there's enough crap on here that doesn't that is just time waster. For the most part, our rooms are not like that. And having something like this that's dedicated and us discussing, like even just a decompress for us is fantastic, and people get the benefit from it to see what we learn, what we like, what we dislike, and all that stuff at the beginning of a week while we're just sitting having our coffee is fantastic. So it depends on the person's perspective. Like some people are just going to sit and enjoy their coffee and mindlessly listen to us and not pay attention at all because it's a comfort thing. Other people will absorb this and learn from it and relate to it. It's all perspective, but either way, I think it's beneficial on many different levels to many different people. So that's why I'm such a huge supporter of this, and the fact that we can talk about how we're going to grow it and how we're going to let it evolve during is, I think, very key. Even as we move on, I think the more we can talk about it in it, the more other people will benefit from it instead of us having conversations outside of it. I think that'll be beneficial, but at the same time, the more we chat about it in here will be more beneficial to us and everybody.
I think there needs to be a healthy bit of both, right? Because I don't want to, let's say, bore the audience that's in here with stuff that may not necessarily pertain to them, or keep them motivated. But also, like, I like the idea of talking about some of the structure so that they understand kind of where we're heading with it as well. I think that part's okay. I just don't think like some of the logistical parts of it really need to be talked about publicly. Like, for example, like what topics we want to talk about, what ones we don't, stuff like that. I don't think that they really need to know. You know what I mean? 'Cause we're picking
Yeah.
topics that, like,
I agree with that.
Other than a teaser of what's next.
yeah,
Yeah, like we did last week, because that was not prompted at all. It just happened, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah, well, that's like, I think one of the big focuses is trying to balance between the online talks and then us offline being able to openly collaborate as well for the benefit of our online, right? I think that's an important thing to always keep in mind. I think so given everything we've talked about, right? So our big thing is our time spent. So Bite Boss, any adjustments or something you feel like you are going to try to change for this week any different than you've done the previous based on our conversation?
I think that I will modify some of the thoughts I have towards like the other things in my life that I need to structure out, like my cleaning tasks and like going to the grocery store, yada yada, my adulting stuff. I think was thinking about that earlier today about not just here and on the app, but I was also thinking about like how I should value my time going with those things too, and what I might do differently. May depend on like I've been thinking about changing a few things on that front too, just to give myself more optimal. That's what you guys both kind of gave to me this morning was like, hey, you're time wasting in a lot of different things throughout my entire life, and I kind of just was like sitting here thinking about my entire week next week, what I can do to help leverage that.
Yeah, like what's in, I think that's the biggest thing we all get lost, right? Before, I think, intention, right? Like what's important? Like what is actually important to you before you go to give? Like, because if you just give endlessly, you won't have much to sit and realize like what the important parts are to you, and especially like with time spent, right? That's a balance of respect to others and respecting yourself always, right? Whether it be on the app, off the app, you have to manage your time in a way that you're respecting what you want against your lifestyle, against what's actually possible too, right?
Correct. There's also unknowns on how you handle that. Like, for example, my dogs are being restless the entire time today, trying to distract them, but I think it's not that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine same thing. My Odin just lays down. He doesn't care. But Loki's constantly get up, come over here, lay down at my feet, get up, go lay down over there, grab a toy. Hey, Dad, come play. But that's a constant thing, right? I try and wear them out a bit, but he's got more energy than he knows what to do with. To touch base on the not boring people, I think the amount of, I guess I even call it non-content, like sleeping rooms and rooms where people are just like, where you see creators sitting in front and go, oh, I'm so bored. Why isn't anybody saying anything? That type of thing. Like the multitasking is key for spending your time appropriately. So doing something that you're already doing and sharing it with the audience, 100%. But I think when it comes to our show, keeping people involved, the people that want to be here for the learning process. I think as we move forward and add other stuff like fun segments or guest segments, I think that'll break it up a lot. We just need to figure out which way to go with that. Like right now, we're trying to figure out what we're even doing to start with, and I think like as a group, the amount of attention and retention that we've maintained and built just in the past couple ones that we've done, it's pretty incredible. I don't know if like I've been paying attention to the numbers in the chat. Like you were mentioning last show that we had doubled, and I think it's happening again. So I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're about the same as we were last week. So my question to you and to what it was to Bite Boss before was just saying to take away, from our conversation and what we talked about so far today, if that's going to cause you to make any changes yourself, or how you go about spending your time on the app for the week to come, now that we've touched base on these topics. So I'm curious to know if your insider feelings have changed before till now.
I was already on that journey. I think I'm just going to keep going the same way, trying to limit time going into people's rooms that I think don't need me there anymore. To say hi is fine. Just to collect points is not really a thing, but like if it benefits them and me at the same time. And it also depends on how much time I've spent. So how much time do I have a day, or do I have a couple hours this week to go around and just be that person? I know that I was already thinking about restructuring so that I'm live less, because I've been live quite a bit lately, and I'm in other people's boxes, or at least in their chat more, because I've stopped doing that as much. And I feel like a lot of people have consistently been in my room since I've been more consistent being live, and I will look and see them live on their own and feel like, hey, I should invite them to co-host or something, but I don't do that a ton. Like certain nights I've decided that I'm going to start co-hosting more, like whether it's battles or just co-hosting, because I haven't.
Okay.
I've been kind of selfish with my lives, but as far as I've already started on that journey of the question you asked, so I'm going to keep fine-tuning that to find a happy spot. But that's an evolving thing too, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Feel like it's one of the hardest things to always manage, right? It's such a hard thing. How do you and that's also some people like spending more of their free time on the app. Some people like spending more of their free time off the app. And so that's going to be like a per basis, but as a live host to other live hosts, be very mindful, right? Because you need to be full to give to your audience when you're there. And that slowly drains out of you the longer you spend not recharging. Because you're only going to have so much time in a day to recharge, and then you have to be back at it the next day. And happy and ready to do it too, right? We've all been at the job, right, where you show up and you just got to be there as part of showing up. But all in all, whatever the job you choose, whatever you choose to spend your time in, you should work towards some sort of satisfaction or enjoyment or happiness from that third or more of your life that is going to get spent, right? 24 hours in a day. And that's why I think it's really important to talk about time management. I think time management for all of us becomes an issue, right? 5 minutes a day adds up pretty quick by the end of the year.
Yeah, it's that 10,000 hour rule. You spend 10,000 hours at something, you're an expert. And you spend, 10 minutes a day or even 5 minutes a day or 100 hours at something, 100 hours in on something, and you're automatically better than 99% of the population at it. So it does relate to everything in your life. Like what do you want to dedicate the time to, and what do you want to get better at? There's also downtime. Like, do you consider being on here downtime sometimes? Is there time where you just don't think and you're just kind of in there in the moment, just kind of chilling? Because that's difficult depending on whose room you're in and what it's about. But it is possible. I've experienced downtime where I just sitting with my earbuds and I got the phone over there. I'm not paying attention, and it's just kind of, you're listening to what's going on. And occasionally you chat. Yep, that's cool. And it's not demanding at all, but you're still participating. So it's rare, but you can find it depending on the room. I know I have people sleep in my room all the time, which is great, because they just come in for the conversation and the music and they pass out, which is fantastic. But for us as creators to find a spot like that is more difficult, I think. But it is attainable.
Yeah, it's definitely something that becomes a community thing, right? Which is more than okay. I've done that, and I always support that, if people feel that comfortable. But I've also changed on that note with time management, time spent. Something I've, before we get off, we try to remind each other, no doom, like, no scrolling, screen breaks, try to get away. Something that I've really tried to do, even when we did boxes and whatnot, is try to get people, remind them to turn the phone upside down, blue light, try to disconnect slowly from the device, because the hard turn off of the phone brings an easy click back on and tap to check again, and then our nervous system needs time to come down. And it doesn't happen in the 5 minutes that you've looked away from your phone. It takes an hour or longer. Like there's stuff that backs that. And that's a part of the time management, right? Part is when I get off myself and I need to take an hour break, even a half an hour, it can't be expected that half an hour to be dedicated to even for my own enjoyment to scroll or to support. Because how do you actually get your proper break that you deserve to then give back to your audience when you go back online again? I definitely have a hard time managing that part of it. And I mean, there's a health aspect too, that like the stress, I'm very high energy, I'm on, and then I try to do this relax when I come off, and I don't do enough proper in cycle. There's also some reasons for some inconsistencies, but for the most part, a schedule. That's been my root thing, everyone, for this. But a schedule, I think, is really important. Even a loose schedule would be much better to get up by this time, for someone that having a hard start to my day can be a very difficult thing, yet if maybe I start earlier. So that's something that is great about having this as a touch point for myself, for everybody. And then it brings purpose. And so that allows me to feel like I've used my time on this app wiser.
I find that having a schedule is super important, especially for your body. Like me, I work during the day, right? So I have to get up at a certain time every morning, and I've been doing that for the last, 15 years. Same time, same type of schedule. So when I don't follow that schedule, I find that my entire body and rhythmic pattern and everything is completely out of whack. So like if I stay up too late past the time that I normally go to bed, for example, the next day is usually miserable. Or if I sleep in past the alarm, then it's like I'm super rushing, and then I'm feeling very jagged or stressed about getting everything accomplished that I have to in the morning before I go to work. And I think that that's super important. And I think there are studies about that too, about your body and having a pattern. Just like having an animal, it's the same kind of thing. They like to be, fed at a certain time. They like to go out at a certain time. I think there's a big that's super important. Health wise or otherwise, like just having a pattern. Like even if like you said, like, hey, I'm gonna go on at like 7 to noon, take a break, and then 6 to 9, take a break. Like just having that mentality is helpful too, right? And it's also helpful in refilling that cup because then like I've only got this time to like put more energy into that cup, and then like also gives you time to think about like what your next actions are. Like, am I coming in super bubbly? Am I going to be the AI guy? Am I going to talk about, this next Sunday? Or like, helps your brain kind of organize. And I think that is super important.
100%. I agree with that.
Yeah, some people's wind down from the day is their drive home from work. Other people's is when they get in the door and, sit down and have a beverage of their choice or whatever, or just take the dogs out for a walk, whatever it is. Like that routine is important, I think, with everything. And I think as creators, we don't structure enough of our time around a routine based on this, and we probably should, especially if we're full time at it or we're really consistent at it, because it is hard sometimes to do that wind down. Like when I go to work or when I do my workout routine or anything like that, it's all got structured. There's all a build up. There's, am I hydrated? Am I fed? If I take pre-workout or have a coffee or whatever, there's a build up to everything. But not this. It's hey, what am I doing? I'm going to cook dinner. Click, phone's on. Am I ready? Am I in that state? That's not usually a thought. It's I'm going to share this. And some days I'm not in that right headspace. I probably shouldn't be on because little things trigger me. I might not be in the right spot, but it slowly builds. But yeah, there should be a ramp up and a come down after, a cool down period for sure. Because I know me going into somebody's live after I've been live is completely different mood or effect on me. It's very different than if I just go in without being live that day. Different conversation, I think, from my point.
So what do you normally do to unwind once you're done with a live? Like, what's your go-to strategy to I'll be good after this?
It's usually a quick browse to see who's live, to go in and say, have an awesome day or something like that. Some sort of end of the evening chat. Thanks for supporting. And if there is nobody, sometimes I will scroll. I've been pretty good lately with not scrolling, but I will usually go grab a snack, some water, and another form of social media I'll put on YouTube or something, and I'll just like zone out. Other than that, I don't really have anything to wind down. Like, I wouldn't even say walking the dogs is the wind down, because that's usually the time I'll do to, like, I have an earbud in usually when I'm walking the dog and I'm having a conversation or taking care of some work, because I like to do multiple things at once. I feel like using time appropriately for multiple things is fantastic.
Multitask.
Yeah, because why not, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
There's certain things that you want to dedicate to do one thing, but I mean, if you have the capability to do multiple things at once, I find it adds a calming effect too. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in your head at once, usually, a lot of the time. So I find that it adds a bit of peace to your day. When you have two separate paths going at the same time, it kind of quells the noise a bit.
Okay. Right on. I can see that. I have no choice when I'm done. I just have to. I'm usually lights, like with the lights, the phone. It's like usually if it's appropriate time, I've been really. I mean, it's summer, so it's easier. But I normally take my phone and from being upright, pull it down so Zeus can't throw it off the table. They're both plugged in, so they're not going far if they are. And I normally have to get up and walk away if I can. Sometimes my personal phone comes with me. Sometimes it's got to be at least, you just have to unwind from this. Just, I think from the blue light. And then, I mean, you're nonstop looking to greet, welcome, and be there for people. So as soon as you don't have to, it's, okay, I got to be there for myself for a minute if I can. Kind of take a judgment of how I feel, how I went about my life, and it's very difficult to not have what goes on in your day-to-day stream pull into your daily life when it's a part of it. So I find that even though you try to disconnect, it's still very difficult because a lot of things come with you, whether your phone's in your pocket, in your hand, or left on your desk, right?
Yeah, because we have 3 different approaches here and 3 different dynamics and 3 different schedules. Being on here, I think it works perfectly to have the 3 different point of views. Like Byte is more in the chat, helping people that way, and not live as consistent as me and you. You're more full-time than I am. I'm more evening based. You're through the day multiple times and evening. Like it's quite a different dynamic that the 3 of us have. So to hear the different ways that we all deal with it, like I haven't looked at what you do to completely disconnect and just walk away and leave everything, because I don't feel at this point like I need to. There has been days where I've just put everything down and walked away.
Yeah.
My work has taught me to totally during the day, so I'm looking at blue screens and all sorts of stuff all the time. So my way of disconnecting is, go for a walk and then take one of the dogs and just, like Lily's right beside me right now, and I'm just sitting here petting her. Back to zero.
Yeah, it's just important, right? Time, like to respect your own time, however to recharge. What works for you too, right? Not same thing that works for me isn't going to work for the 2 of you. We might be able to help each other, right? Through our own little tips and tricks, and you can adjust your own behaviors, but no one listening, and none of the 3 of us are going to do anything the exact same. And that's collaboration is really important, and I think that's what's to be taken away from these Sundays as well, right? It's a different set of opinions around, just around today, around that topic of time management, how we even just our view of how we see our own managing of our own time, right? Like that perception, just speaking about it will allow us through the week to replay little bits, right, from what we heard from each other and from ourselves. And I think that's really important part of this, is it's a little bit more, the process is going to build through each week, right? And I think that's part of, I hope the audience gets out of that as well, because it's like a journey that, ideally you couldn't have 1 million people every day as a person in the box, every topic that we go, but a guest segment would be lovely, in the future to incorporate those things. To me, valuable, but trying to remember so that the 3 of us are always bringing value to ourselves, bringing value to the audience, and then continuing to find that next topic or subject area that brings interest to us, but also brings healing, because we're the mental health area is a very, maybe in a month we come back to the time management area and then expand on a detail, right? But I think this is great. You have any closing thoughts, Pipe Boss?
My thoughts are where I came from. This is like learning respect for everybody, everyone's time, leaving people in the chat their time, being respectful, super important. And feel that if anyone's going to walk away today, that they should walk away with that mentality as well, respecting.
Love that.
The dad, what do you think is any closing remarks?
I think, to circle back to me using like certain lives as a wind down. This actually, thinking about it now, last Sunday was nice because it was like a recap of what I'd done and to hear different perspectives, but it's kind of like a calming thing. It's not really a confirmation, but like it's nice to have the conversation about everything that's happened and how we're adjusting to it at the end of the week. It's kind of like a calming conversation to reevaluate. It's nice to bounce all that stuff off you guys and see some comments in the chat as well. Like I regularly have chats with my chat about how to better do hosting and stuff, just based on what I've learned. Like I haven't been doing it that long, but this is nice to do it in this forum. So it's like it's a very calming thing for me. It's very helpful. So that's hopefully other people can get that as well. But it's, now that I've said it out loud, this is one of the things that I would use to refill my cup. So Sunday helps me recharge. This would be my recharging time.
Love that.
This kind of amps me up to want to go live after to talk to my chat. Even though I have other stuff to do, now I have stuff in mind to, and the same thing happened last Sunday without realizing it. But yeah.
That's good. That means like we're having impact on each other. I think that's one of the, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a very positive thing, that, these talks are actually, being effective. Not just here on screen, where we're actually taking what we say to each other to heart.
Yeah, it's something where it's a very respected space, and we're all after that same goal. I think for the week to come, for me, from this conversation, it's when you listen to the opinions of others, as you begin to process that. I'm a 24-hour guy, so it takes me 24 hours roughly for my brain to resort, digest, and then rethink again, right? Just about everything. And I feel not worrying more about recharging instead of worrying about recharging others is something I get lost in, and I'm going to do my best to balance that better going into this week. I think is my thing, and you gotta have something in you to give to others. I think that's something that we all want to do the best for everyone. but you got to have something of quality and quantity to be able to give. And when your cup's empty, you don't have anything to give to others. As much as you feel like you're being productive, you're straining at that point. You don't want to be that weight to others. So
can I propose a topic for next week then?
love it.
So why don't we come next week and make a small point of what did we do the last week to fill our cup? You know, you went for a walk, you went to the gun range, you threw some darts, you eat a whole bunch of pie, you know? What did you do this week to fill that cup? And then we can talk about it next week.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Because what works for me, you might not have ever thought of, and vice versa. Or, you know, you can morph, you know, growth with that, right? And just go, oh, I never really thought that, you know, doing that would be helpful. So that's what I'm thinking about, is
Lovely.
about what my cup's going to be and what I'm going to talk about there.
I love that.
Yeah, I agree. Really good idea.
Yeah, this is really turning out to be great. Just want to say thanks to Bite Boss and the dad. Big thanks to you guys. I think this is awesome starting to do this. Appreciate everybody that's watching.
Thank you, Zen. Posted all too. I know that's a lot of work getting things organized and the posts and the videos and all that. Just know that we appreciate you.
My pleasure. And everyone listening, there is a link in my bio that takes you to my YouTube. There's a playlist on there. I'll make a more direct link this week, but there will be the playbacks of every episode that you guys will be able to rewatch with video and audio for you guys to enjoy as well. So working to make it a more inclusive atmosphere for even those that can't be here due to time zones and everything. So just a note for everyone, and can't wait for next week.
Yeah, appreciate all the hard work you put into that. And same as what we offered before, you need any help on any of it, like I'm not sure what I can offer, but don't hesitate to ask. So we wouldn't be here without you. So like, how do we know what we can repost on here with, and where do we put it when it comes to stuff like that? Like, there's a link in your bio. Should we be sharing that link as well on our pages? Like, that's something probably we need to chat about. Like, is there a essential
I think
area we should put it?
Maybe we'll look after some of that offline. And my big thing is I want everyone that, just as it's going to take probably at least another month for everything to kind of, find the groove of everything, and happy to continue to post stuff and, to keep it interactive with everyone. I think the biggest thing is just patience from viewers, patience from, us, and then we just continue to build and hit those next steps every week. And, it's a mental health thing at the end of the day, right? So it's not, I don't think there's a straight shot to doing this, like a certain way that we go about, but we'll definitely continue to week by week have a topic. And next week, we're all going to find out what we did to fill our cup so we can be there in a better light for each other.
I think it's going to be great. And I think people listening too will probably find that very interesting on what we did to accomplish that, so that they can then take that into their own lives and write something similar.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that for sure. I have no idea what I'm going to do to fill my cup, but I'm looking forward to it.
We got a week to find something to speak about, and no, I'm looking forward to find not just what I think works for me every day, but something that's actually valuable that I can share as a strategy to others as well. Because as someone that does this all the time, there is an extreme balance to that, and I feel like being able to share that with everyone will force me myself to level up, right?
That was the point.
Exactly.
I think regardless of what it is, even if at that point, if we're talking about filling our own cups, I don't think it matters what you find. I get your train of thought with that. How to say what you found and whether it benefits other people as well. I think at that point, though, as long as you say what you found, it doesn't matter. As long as it worked for you, at some point somebody's gonna look at it from their perspective, and it will benefit them that way. So it's hard to have a multi-view on what you find beneficial, but as long as you find it beneficial, then that's the key.
Here's my thought. My thought is I say something like, hey, I go to the lake. I do a sunset by a tree that I like, for example, right? You might go, well, I'm going to go do a bike ride because I prefer my bike, and do something similar and watch the sunset. That's ideally, as an example, what I'm hoping that we all get out of this is that, like, yes, you may do something differently than I do, but in the end, I gave you an idea of something to improve yourself on.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's kind of the thought.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. And that's where I think the collaboration portion of that, right, from the panel to the audience that hears those experiences and everything, I think that's a great positive thing. Great idea.
Fantastic. Glad we like it.
Well, everybody, I think that gets to the end.
So,
Appreciate everybody who tuned in. Till next week, 9 a.m. again is the plan. I'll have a event in my bio by Wednesday for everybody here on TikTok. If you want to register again for next week, just to put in your calendar. And I look forward to sharing the live with you guys next week. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
fantastic.
Thanks
for
everybody.
having me.
Appreciate you all. Happy Sunday, everybody. Take care.
Take care, you guys.
Bye.